Hello. Today we are going to discuss about cloud security and privacy policies. So in this part, we will discuss NIST guidelines, that is National Standards Agency of USA. Then we'll discuss about GDPR, which is rules and regulations in European Union or European countries. Then we'll discuss about CDN security, content delivery network security. So first of all, we will begin with NIST guidelines. What does it says? It says basically something uh, from starting point. Whenever we are building a cloud platform or any internet-based application, we have to be careful from the starting point, and we have to plan accordingly before engaging in all these companies and all these assets. So this organizational data application, all these things should be according to the organizational security. Means whatever be your organization, this organization security should have to be first objective from starting point. Then s- security should be considered throughout life cycle, so that the plan should be made that throughout the life cycle of that system, security should have to be considered. What does it mean? It means that while application development, while service provisioning, all that time, security has to be taken concern. While designing phase, implementation phase, testing phase, using phase. So all that time, security and privacy should have to be considered. So the planning has to be made such that initial at the starting point. Then monitoring and deployment and engaging of services should have to be properly, and that has to be monitored, that application, for the proper security and privacy. Then thereafter, public cloud environment. What does it say? So there are multiple type of cloud platforms or uh, models that we discussed. One of them is public cloud. So in public cloud, basically security and privacy issue uh, should be there and should have to implement and deploy accordingly. And this should not be very difficult, expensive, or exposing to unrisky, uh, unnecessary risk. So this security and privacy should have to be properly implemented and deployed, so that there will be no unnecessary risk. Then thereafter, in public cloud, the security and privacy should have to be monitored properly in terms of access. Means what access should be there for the different type of cloud users. So this, so that the organizational policy should have to be maintained. So this procedure and technical controls should be maintained by cloud provider properly. Then there's uh, third point, that continuous monitoring of risk management and helps the organization. So the from starting point and throughout the life cycle, there's always a continuous monitoring of security, risk, and privacy should have to be there, so that you can monitor risk, vulnerability, and threats. Then thereafter, there is requirement of uh, maintenance of organizational risk that will help to take decisions, and this satisfies the organizational requirement. What does it mean by satisfying the organizational requirement? So the organizational have to negotiate with the following terms. What are these terms? Like vetting of employees, means hiring of some employees, enrolling, recruitment type of things. So how the communication will happen with the employees should have to be negotiated properly in the according to the organizational requirement. Then thereafter, second point, data ownership. Who will own that particular data which has been about to create? That has to be maintained. Then what are the uh, exit right, means what are the rights of particular users? So there's a notification have to be given whenever there is a breach of a security or something. Then there's isolation of tenant application. So the application should have to be properly kept, and there should be no isolation that have to be take place. Then there's proper data encryption, means the data should have to be secure enough and have to be encrypted, and that segregation have to be done, means the all the data should have to be segregated. Then tracking and reporting of service effectively. What does it mean by tracking and reporting? So this uh, sequence of the sequence of uh, execution, and there has to be proper report generation, so that the services could be maintained effectively. Then compliance of laws and regulations. So a particular law and regulation should have to be monitored and managed. So that is compliance with laws and regulation. Then the use of product, means the product should have to maintain the requirements of federal or national standards. So there are some uh, geographically larger organizations like countries and federal systems are there. So these nations and federal systems have their own standards. So the products, whatever you are developing, your organization is developing, should meet out requirement of these countries or uh, federal systems. Then there's next client side requirement. What is client side requirement? So if you have a public cloud, then there will be a client desktop application or Android app application or iOS application. So that is client side requirement. So that client side should have to also be protected. What does it mean by protected? It means that uh, following how the client device should be run, how it has been determined, how the security policies and privacy policies are being maintained for cloud security and cloud services. Then the internet facing public services, like uh, the client side also need to be safe and secure. So by determining the security and privacy policies, then this in so that the internet security breach are not being faced by the client. What are the type of security issues in internet, like backdoor trojan, then keys stroke logger, then malwares. So these three are the type of security uh, threats to the client side. So that has to be taken care. Then next, organization should review measures of cloud computing security architecture, so that the client side should be have to be safe. So this organization should have to measure that cloud security architecture so that the client side would be safe. Then employ additional measures needed to secure the client. So employ are need to be in the controlled form so that the client side should have the proper security and privacy. So the employees also have to be in control so that the uh, d- data of clients are not being breached. So this employ additional measures. So uh, there could be additional measures like some organizational persons should not reveal the data of client. These type of measures should have to be taken care for securing the client side. And there's maintainability and accountability of public cloud. What does it mean? So there's organization should monitor assets. So what are the servers they are using, then how to access these implementation, these services. There has to be proper policies, standards, and procedure and control so that that particular data should have to be how, who will going to access it, what are the ways to access it, what are the procedure, how the control should be there. Then there's guidelines should have to be established and protection should have to be done so that some confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information could be maintained in the system. Then continuous monitoring of security involves maintaining. So this organization should have to monitor the security continuously, so that the awareness of privacy and security should be monitored, and there's control and vulnerability and threat should need to be monitored. So this continuous monitoring is required. Uh, uh, this point is very important. We are discussing since starting. And, this gives awareness of privacy and security control, and make you aware, make that organization pre-aware of threats. Then what is monitoring? So monitoring of security networks should have to do that. Network channel should have to be secure. The information flow on that network should have to be secure. Then system should have to accept some information properly, or it has to avoid the particular threatful information that has to be monitored. Then there's mitigating risk, means it may be possible that risk may occur because of change in some situation. So the some policy change, some uh, control change happened, so there's chance of mitigating risk, so that has to be monitored. Then we will discuss about GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. GDPR, it is very famous uh, because it was being used for the whole European Union, so that it can protect data and have the privacy policies. For whom it is applicable? So it is applicable for you, for all the citizens in European Union, for all the European economical area. So this GDPR has to be monitored. Means GDPR take care of the data of these citizens. And then what it does, it addresses the personal data outside the European Union or EEA area. So it protects rights of the citizens. And what are the primary aim of doing uh, providing this law and information, so that it gives control and having the individual uh, access to the personal data, so that only these uh, limited users could able to access that personal data. So that it made uh, who made it? So European Parliament had made it. So European Parliament had made it, and then European Council is been managing and maintaining the uh, this GDPR primary things. So this it was being made by European Parliament and Council of European Union. So this these type of strong federal and government agencies are being involved in this GDPR, European Parliament and Council of European Union. Then this GDPR basically gives the following. So this GDPR is applicable for these three type of stakeholders. Who are these three type of stakeholder? So the regulation applies to data controller. So whoever in an organization who's collecting the data of this European Union residents or citizens, so they have to be they are inside this data controller law. Then who are the processors? So suppose an organization can wants to process the data on behalf of a data controller, like cloud service provider. So this data processor uh, is also under the uh, control of this European Union, and this data should of their data is applicable with GDPR laws. Then data subject, who is the person, the main person whose data it is. So that person itself or an organization could also be possible, or department could also be possible. So that data subject is the third stakeholder on which this GDPR regulation is applied. So this article means I just collected small part of the GDPR. So how the laws are being formulated. So we'll just read it and discuss some important points. This was like unless the data subject has provided informed consent to the data processing for one or more purpose, personal data may not be processed unless there is at least one legal basis to do so. What does it says? It says that till the point data subject, whoever be the organization or personal data person is there, so that have not given a consent, means it has not formed, signed or ticked the agreement, then that data should not be processed without consent of that data subject. Then the persons may not be, means any organization should not proceed for doing this personal data analysis, so that behavioral analysis could be done. So until unless you have not taken permission from that person, so the behavioral analysis could not be possible. This is what it means in simple layman terms. Then at least one legal basis to do so. So there's one legal basis is required, means what is that agreement between data subject, means personal user citizen, with the processor who want to process it. Then Article 6 says that states the lawful purpose are, so the Article 6 says that if data subject has given consent to the processing of his or her personal data. So how can a data processor, means a company can process a citizen's data of European Union. So the data subject, means person, organization, is has given consent to let his or her data to be processed. Then there's next feature to fulfill contractual obligation with the data subject or for a task at the request of the data subject who is in the process of entering into a contract. Suppose this data subject is citizen and it's like it's in the contract with an organization. So that organization needs to process that uh, data of this citizen. So this, because of this contract itself, and because this user is inside that organization, it has a domain of that organization. So that data of that domain of that user could be processed. So this, because it is under this contract. Then third point says that to comply with data controller legal obligation. So what does it mean by data controller is the one who is main owner and managing. So this, if there is some legal obligation that it required to process, it has been already signed and informed to the organization or that person, so that uh, data controller can process it. Then to protect the vital interest of the data subject or another individual. So what does it mean? This, so if there is a data subject which is itself interested for doing the behavioral analysis, or it is having no problem to share its information. So these legal statements are being made so that they can protect the data set of this data subject. And then there's to perform a task in the public interest or in the official authority. So there are some bigger organizations, authorities are there, like countries, like federal agencies, and there's public interest, which is very important. So its first concern is public interest or some official authority like country, they want to perform the task for data analysis, behavioral analysis, so they can do that task. Then 6 point says that for the legitimate interest of data controller or the third party, unless these interests are overridden by the interest of the data subject or his or her right according to the character of fundamental right, especially in case of children. So what does it says? There's some legitimate interest, means fair interest. There is no harm to do the data analysis. So data controller or third party can do the behavioral analysis or do the uh, data processing such that it does not harm any rights of that data subject. Means it should follow the rights of that data subject or organization before doing all these legitimate interest. Especially some children policies are there, some fundamental rights are there. So these fundamental rights and children policies should not be overwritten or harmed. Then only this data controller and third party can do legitimate data processing. Then we'll discuss third part as CDN security. What does CDN, that content delivery network, we discussed in previous classes in detail. So what are there could be profit of CDN provider. So how the profit could be there? Like either the content provider using their network or from the user analytic and tracking data. So there are two ways a delivery network provider, CDN provider like Akamai, can take benefit. What are that? So the content provider. So there's original content provider is there, and they are using the network. So if they are using the network, they will pay amount of money. So that is first way of behaving, making profit by the CDN. Then second way, CDN make profit by user analytics, means tracking the data, it is reading the information, and according to that information, there's behavioral targeting or this marketing could be done by the CDN provider. Then there's two threads that we will discuss. Thread one says that there's potential privacy intrusion to do the behavioral targeting. What is it means by potential privacy intrusion? So there's a specific kind of communities or persons are being targeted for doing the uh, privacy analysis, and this intrusion of behavioral targeting could be done. So how it could be solved? The solution is like same origin policy. What does it mean by same origin policy? Same origin policy says that permits script if the page have the same origin. Means combination of URI, scheme, host name, and port number should have to be same. What does it mean? So the original, whoever be the original user, that only can access the data. Like we do, mobile number uh, got the OTP. What is that OTP? It's like finding out whether that machine in which you logged in is your own or not. So this mobile number is, they assume that it is something same origin. So this permits only that laptop or machine could access which has filled correct OTP. So that is how they resolve URI, scheme names, host and port number. So this and that machine will be registered. If they ask that whether we can register this authentic machine or not. So if you tick that, that whole machine will become part of origin, same origin. So next thread is like what CDN can do. This threat is like CDN network serving JavaScript can target or inject malicious code into the content. So the JavaScript which is coming from the CDN. So this JavaScript may be malicious or may have some uh, privacy intrusion content or scripting or code. So there may be possible so that the user could reveal the data. Then what is the solution? Solution is sub-resource integrity. What is sub-resource integrity? It says that ensures the content is known and constrained to a hash reference by the website. What it means? to ensure the content is known means in the way you are logged in, username, password are being you create you have the username password. You are logging with the new machine. So this username password creates a hash map. So hash is being created. So this hash means a binary thing is there. That hash is being sent to the server. If that hash is having matched uh, with the account hash, means there's account which already knows that this is the hash will be created with username and password. So that hash is being compared with the hash that you created on your own machine or laptop. So on your own machine and laptop, you fill username password. It creates a hash. Hash is a content of binary information. That binary information uh, that doesn't have any meaningful significance for humans. This hash will be sent to the server, and that server contains your account hash. So account hash will be matched, and if that account hash is being matched, you could able to log in that website for the reference purpose. Then these are the advanced some features of security. You can go and this is could be deal and studied in more detail in security course separately. So this cloud computing and web services or this service oriented architecture has this much limit means uh, boundaries. In detail, if you want to study, go and study in security and privacy course. Then these are the references that we took for Facebook photo caching, Docker reproducibility research, then paper by Mark Herman and Peter, then this applied machine learning at Facebook. We also studied version control and this privacy policies by NIST. These are the references. So thanks. I hope you have enjoyed this part of course. Anyone have any doubt or any question? Then we can discuss, or we'll stop here. Okay, so we'll discuss in next part. Bye. See you.